Hey guys, welcome to the channel. How is it going? So today in this video we are going to talk about the web novel chapter 230, and let me tell you that this story is connected to our previous videos. Make sure you watch it. Now without wasting time, let's begin the video. Dino begrudgingly made his way forward. Now he was face to face with Beretta and Zijan. The three of them stared at each other for a moment. Well then, begin. Ramiris shouted gleefully, and the fight began. Unlike Pico and Gracia, Dino had no particular love for battle. Or more accurately, he found it to be too much trouble and mostly just hated it. However, his opponent would not allow it to be so easy. He had thought that he'd lightly evaded Beretta's unleashed fist, but the swinging arm ignored any notion of common sense and rammed into him. In just one moment of offensive and defensive battle, Dino had seen through what made Beretta dangerous. He was almost a different person from when he had fought him before. He had beaten him easily that time, but things were clearly not going to be the same now. But really, this was too much growth for such a short amount of time, not only Gable and Gerudo but now even Beretta. On top of all this, Zijan was still waiting nearby. The situation was now bad enough for Dino to want to give up. It was probably because he was used to leisurely analyzing things that he did not immediately notice that the ground beneath his feet was turning into a swamp. Oh, damn. He thought, but it was already too late. Dino's feet had been sucked into the ground. This was due to an earth element attack from Beretta. Now the ground was up to his knees as he continued to sink, but that was not even the end of it. The ground started to solidify. It had changed into a liquid metal. It had become fetters that would be difficult to escape with strength alone. Dino was captured. As Dino had only been cautious of Zijan, this growth from Beretta was completely unexpected. He had planned to disable Beretta first and then take on Zijan, but it was clear that the situation would no longer allow it. As he was thinking this, Zijan attacked. The fists that shot out were as fast and sharp as ever. Dino could not move his legs and had no way to dodge the attacks. He attempted a parry with his left arm. Piercing. It was a surprisingly light blow. No, too light. It was not a blow, but there was a pain that reached to the depths of his soul. Ouch. Dino screamed at the intense pain. He was a spiritual life form, which meant that he, of course, had pain immunity. But even then, Dino's soul was howling out in pain as if to mock him. You're not Zijan? You tricked me, hee, you fool. It is your own fault for allowing yourself to be tricked. Did you think that there was any merit in using normal attacks on someone who has raised their anti-damage resistance? Unexpected attacks tend to pack quite a punch, don't they? Zijan, no, Upito, who had turned into Zijan through the use of his powers, answered with a laugh. And with that, she transformed into a beautiful insect model devil. Had Dino been able to foresee the attack and resist it, then he may have been able to curb the effect, but now that it had hit him once, the second time would be impossible to resist. This was all due to Upito's ability, anaphylaxis shock. That's dirty. It was cowardly enough for you to attack as a pair, but now you would even do something so low as this. Silence. There is no such thing as fair play in warfare. You just need to win. If you lose then you die. That is the ironclad rule. Upito roared back as Dino shouted. Her belief that victory meant everything did not allow Dino much room to protest. A sadistic smile cracked on her face as she raised her beautiful hand towards Dino. Let's wait a moment. Okay? Let's calm down and talk. You'll understand if we talk. I think people can come to understand each other. Ah, that may be true. Now, die. Dino's suggestion was mixed with screaming. Upito gave him a benevolent smile. And while wearing that smile, she stabbed once. Ouch. I'm serious, just wait. This hurts. This really hurts, you know. Dino screamed through tear-filled eyes. He wanted to run, but his feet were firmly imprisoned. It was impossible. Hoo ho ho ho. Not so cocky now, Dino. What should I do? If you cry and say that you are sorry, I may just forgive you. Dino was screaming from the severe pain as Ramiris addressed him through her own laughter. Are you telling me that I must betray Velda? Oh? Wasn't that rather quick for you? That is exactly right. Are you stupid? How could I ever do that? Can't you? Why not? I have a question for you, Dino. Why do you serve him? Why? Well, it's because one can't go against Veldanava, can one? Dino, think carefully about it. Veldanava and Velda are different, did you not know? Huh? Of course, that's common knowledge. Common knowledge? No, wait. Velda is Veldanava, right? Dino felt a sense of unease with this conversation with Ramiris. He felt a contradiction in his words. He had to stop and think. Well, never mind. In any case, since you did betray such a pure heart as mine, I must make you regret your actions for a while. Now, finish him off, Beretta and Upito. Dino's screams echoed. Ultimately, Dino was not given any time to think slowly. He would be forced to suffer through Apito's successive attacks. Ramiris' delighted laughter echoed in the control room. Apparently torturing Dino had given her a great sense of relief. She was now staring at the large screen and wearing an incredibly satisfied look on her face. Well, perhaps I'll forgive him right about now. Aren't you going a little too far? It's fine, it's fine. Dino is a lot tougher than you think. The current strategy was something that Benimaru and Ramiris had talked about and decided together, after hearing Ramiro's predictions of Velda's battle strategy for invading the labyrinth. Well, Zero encroached on the labyrinth and usurped its authority, just like Ramiru had predicted. The next prediction is about what move Zero will take. After assimilating with the labyrinth, it should be quite difficult to maintain his sense of self, don't you think? Something like that. Yes. He isolated over half of the floors of my labyrinth. Who knows what will happen if he absorbs all of that? To be honest, it's one thing to slowly soak it in and encroach, but assimilating all at once will most likely make one lose their mind. I see. And what did Lord Ramiru have to say? In short, he said that Zero would surely encroach on the labyrinth. So Ramiru wants us to isolate parts of the labyrinth to make the bait easier to see. When this happens, he wasn't sure if Zero would be able to stay sane, but he believes it will have some effect on him. And so we had Zijan attack as soon as the labyrinth had been isolated. Lord Ramiru was a little worried about having Zero and Zijan face each other, but Zijan seemed quite enthusiastic about it. Yes, yes. Though Zijan ended up having an easier time with it than we had expected. I understand all of that. And so, what did Lord Ramiru say? Ramiris and Benimaru both helped to answer Shana's question, but they seemed reluctant to explain the most important part. Perhaps she had felt annoyed by this because Shana asked them again in a harsher tone. Yes. He said, maybe we will be able to see his true nature. Indeed. Not so much Zero's true nature, but Velda's, I think. Ramiris and Benimaru answered. In other words, once Zero had assimilated with the labyrinth, he would gain absolute superiority over any enemies that were inside. And if this happened, was it not likely that he would not differentiate from friend or foe and launch attacks at them all? That was Ramiru's prediction. On top of that, with Benimaru's strategy, Zijan had planted a sense of fear in Zero's heart. Zero would surely want power in order to defeat Zijan then. The general outline of the plan Benimaru made was based on the assumption that it would prey on anything it saw, regardless of it being friend or foe. That's why we made sure to have everyone retreat before Zero's assimilation with the labyrinth reached 100%. A Zero who was so consumed by fear and a thirst for power would attack Dino and the others without a doubt. Is that so? Lord Ramiru was right, as expected. But then, what will happen if Zero is able to keep his sense of reasoning? If that happens, we will just toss the entire isolated labyrinth into the infinite loop. Everyone in the control room found this answer very satisfying. The only thing that could make this whole situation even better would be for Dino to be persuaded before Zero's encroachment was completed. But even then, Shuna noticed something. In the first place, if you could rid the place of invaders through an assault, then there was no reason to have Zero attack Dino. In that case, what was Lord Ramiru's true purpose? She looked at the excited Ramiris and came to a certain conclusion. I see. He doesn't want to have Dino killed. Ramiru and Dino had joked around and been friendly. And Ramiris. They had last separated as enemies, but perhaps Ramiru had still not wanted to kill Dino. She wasn't sure if it was because Ramiris had asked him, or if it was his own will, but Shuna was convinced that the truth was along those lines. Shuna nodded with satisfaction and moved her gaze back to the large screen. Ramiris and Benimaru finished their explanations at about the same time that Zero was finishing his rapid assimilation with the labyrinth, after being driven frantic by his emotions. The assimilation rate is at 99%. We should call everyone back right about now. Ramiris began shouting. Benimaru barked orders. The attack unit, which had been given an explanation in advance, returned through teleportation after receiving the order. And their plan had succeeded. We have just now returned. Lady Ramiris. Beretta addressed her as a representative of those who had returned. Everything had gone according to schedule. Good, well done. Depending on how the enemy reacts, we plan to release the labyrinth into the infinite loop. However, in the event that we fail to accomplish this, we will have to enter an all-out war. I think that it goes without saying, that it will be incredibly dangerous to lure an enemy who has assimilated with an isolated space. In the event that we are forced to attack once again, all of you must be prepared and standing by. Everyone understood and agreed with Benimaru's words. How would Zero react? What would Dino do in turn? There was a need for them to be sure. After all, depending on the results, there was a high likelihood an intense battle would erupt. Also, it should be obvious without my having to say it, but in regards to Lord Ramiru being alive, that should remain strictly confidential. So saying, Benimaru finished his speech. Just like Ramiru was searching for any movements by Velda, Velda was also probing for Ramiru. This was Ramiru's own decision and the reason that he did not return to the labyrinth. Seal had pointed out the possibility that they would wait for the moment when Ramiru would step foot in the labyrinth, and then isolate the entirety of it. It would surely be possible with Velda's abilities, she had said. Ramiris, labyrinth creation, was an ability with a high degree of freedom, but it required a connection to this world. If that was severed, the labyrinth itself would drift off between the cracks of the dimensions. Seal had been convinced that there was no reason to believe that Velda could not do this if it was possible for Ramiru to. And if it did to come to that, while it would be possible to escape, it would take a tremendous amount of time. Returning after the world had been destroyed meant that you had still been defeated. That was what Ramiru had said when explaining to Benimaru and the others. Benimaru remembered those words now and nodded deeply. Don't worry, Lord Ramiru. I will protect the labyrinth with my life. Determined, Benimaru moved his gaze back to the large screen. And so did Ramiris. Dino, that idiot. Really, what was he doing at such a critical moment? The plan was already in its final stage. Dino and the others had become a target in the trap to lure Zero out. But Ramiris wished, as if praying, that Dino would once again become their companion. So guys, this was all for today's video. Thanks for watching.